meeting is called to order. I'll begin by reading out the Native Solidarity Statement. I would like to acknowledge that Concordia University is on the traditional territory of the Ghanaian-Gayaga, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. The Concordia Student Union recognizes and respects the Ghanaian-Gayaga as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters on which we meet today. So welcome everyone. For roll call, please sign in if you haven't done so yet. I haven't produced a chairperson's report for this meeting, but there has been a resignation. So for you all to know, Fadi Kamel sent his resignation midway through our last council meeting. So that's as far as resignations goes. And one notice of excusal from Marcus, who said that he had to study for an exam. He's not requesting an excuse for the meeting, simply letting everybody know. All right, so for the approval of the agenda, we have a chance now to modify the agenda, add something, remove, or switch around. So now would be a chance, and we can start with Bree.
I would like to remove the Sustainable Concordia Sustainability Policy point. Unfortunately, Mark Underwood will not be here today, so we'll maybe have it to our next meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep, I'd like to pull the committee report of policy from November 16th and deal with it in point B of number 7, business.
New business. Okay, so you'd like to address it in the point policy changes?
Yeah, so just not approve it right now on consent.
Right, understood. Okay. Anything else for the approval of the agenda? Any changes we'd like to make before we proceed? Okay, great. Is anyone opposed to the approval of the agenda? Otherwise, we can just proceed by consensus for this. And this would also ratify the consent agenda as well. Oh, yeah, Terry?
Just because I remember Bree was mentioning this to me before, that the reason why Mark isn't here is also because the university modified draft for the sustainability policy hasn't been released subsequent to all of the consultations that they've had. So councillors can expect to see this point reappear for hopefully the December meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, if nobody has any opposition, then we by unanimity, we can approve the agenda for tonight, and which approves the consent agenda and takes us to our first presentation of the evening from the Center for Gender Advocacy. So we've got Gabriella, who will take it away in just a second. Take your time.
It's all at the end. It get started. So can you how's that on? Yeah. So I'm here because I want you to feel the heaviness and look at this this thing here. So that's a prize that I received 2 weeks ago. So I received this prize with 5 other people for the appreciation of the work that we did to change the law in Quebec. So the Center for Gender Advocacy was pivotal in making some significant changes for trans folks in Quebec. So anybody who doesn't know what a trans person is? Okay, so we start with a good place. Okay, awesome. So we, can I go there? Cause
Yeah.
So it's heavy, right? So we received this prize because for the last 3 years we've been working on this stuff. We've been working and trying to make the legislative change and then some regulation change. And we went to the National Assembly to get this stuff done. And that led us to be known. And then last year I went to the UN to speak on trans rights. And I was lucky to be one of the only representative of North America to represent, talk about trans rights. And all of this is your fault. Seriously. So not only you need to see how fucking heavy this thing is, right? But understand that this is your fault. You've been supporting the Center for Gender Advocacy for decades now. We've been around Concordia since 1983. And because you support what we do and because you think that it's important to have us around, we're able to do this change. So know this, all of you, that you were part of making trans history in Quebec. You were actually part of making trans history in Canada. So I don't want to talk long, but I just want to say that please bring that to other students. Please share this work. Please tell everybody that this is how fracking awesome Concordia is. You know how many times I brag about the fact that we're the first university in Quebec who actually had a name of common usage policy? And that was because we were supported by the CSU and by students. And that we are the first one to have gender-neutral bathroom, that no other university had that before. We're on the forefront of gender and trans rights on so many levels, and it's all because of you. So I'm not going to take a long of your time, but I just really, really wanted to tell you that the work we did in the past has made significant change, and that we're keeping on making those changes today. You know, it's an ongoing thing. So thank you for your past support. Thank you for the support you're giving us now. And I'm going to thank you in advance for this support that you'll give us in the future, because you are changing people's life. This is not only heavy, I think in the middle, I like to call it that, like it's a crystal ball with a, LGBT vortex in the middle. Some people think it's a unicorn turd. I mean, either way, it's awesome. It doesn't matter. But also there's a whole bunch of, it's heavy, and it's heavy from the burden that trans people have to live with. And there's a whole bunch of little dogs that I think are all tears that people come and talk to us about. So it's a prize, but it's also a reminder that there's a lot of work to be done still, and that I'm super proud to be working at the Center for Gender Advocacy, and I'm super proud to know that the CSU and Concordia is supporting our effort. So, not selling anything, just saying thanks. Thank you, everybody. And I don't know if you want to hold on to it for a little while, CSU.
While we still have you, does anyone have any questions or any comments?
Yeah.
Before we run the next one? Yeah, Mary?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, I think that for people who maybe aren't as aware of trans issues and gender rights, it might be hard to contextualize, but I think these are the kind of things that someday they're going to write about in the books, and they'll say the CGA of Concordia was supported by students, and they were the ones who made these important policy changes. And it's hard to understand when you're outside of an experience, but these are concrete things that because of these policy changes, little pieces of the lives of trans people are getting better slowly. And so I just want to underline that. It's something that, anyway, it touches me a lot. And I really hope that we can continue to work on important collaborations with the CGA, like little things we've done this year. We included in the student agenda a list of all the gender-neutral washrooms, and that was a super small thing, but it raises the visibility slowly, step by step. So I just want to express that I really hope we can continue these important partnerships to move these kind of things forward. And I think it would be an honor if we could borrow the beautiful rainbow swirl for a little while.
I think you should keep it. I think you should keep it for a while. And by the way, we have this awesome thing that we do because of you again. Like, own your shit. Like, you're doing a lot of stuff, so it's your fault. So we're doing this new bystander intervention training. So we're just like working it out. And it's something that's going to be super helpful for so many people. Being able to understand what to do when you're in a situation where you say, I don't know if I can do anything. I don't know if I can speak. And being able to teach people tools maybe and tips and tricks on how to be able to intervene in those situations is going to change people's life too. So we do stuff that change people's life, but because you folks are there. You had a question?
Oh, I was just, if you don't mind taking 2 minutes to maybe for folks who don't know what the policy changes were at the provincial level?
Yeah,
Just give a little elevator pitch of
yeah.
why it's
Okay, so
awesome
the tweet,
to work with.
so the tweet version, So the tweet version is that for 40 years in Quebec, trans folks had to be sterilized. So there was one group in Quebec who didn't have body autonomy legally, and it was trans folks. So if somebody wanted to have their gender recognized, so born or given at birth a gender and saying, fuck off, that's not what it is, and I'm going to the other one, well, going to the other one meant that somebody had to be sterilized. And that ended this year. For 40 years, we sterilized trans folks. And it stopped this year. That's how big the change was. We gave, collectively, body autonomy to trans folks. So that's a huge thing. Kids and youth are still not allowed to change their gender marker. Who remembers their high school? I do. Fucking awful. So imagine if your gender is not the one that you actually go, for. That's pretty difficult. And migrants, so people who don't have Canadian citizenship can't change their gender marker. In a moment like we are today in the Canadian history, where we have this huge conversation on how good are we going to be with migrant people, I mean, it's very significant to think that some of those will be trans and will face additional barrier because they are. So, does that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's more the Tumblr version.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, and with our second presentation put off to a subsequent meeting, we can go into appointments, starting with 6A, the Finance Committee.
All right, so it's my same spiel. If anyone's interested in any of the following committees, is it okay if I just kind of list them off and list?
Yeah, if
people?
you want, sure.
I'll just give the spiel once and then we'll go through all of them. If anyone's interested in any of the committees, there is a seat open on the Finance Committee. As I'm sure you're aware, you get to work with Anas and the lovely group of people who work with him to look over the finances, to make sure that everything's in check. So if anyone's interested in sitting on this committee, now is your time to either nominate yourself or someone else. But we can also remember that we do have elections happening right now, so hopefully by the next meeting we'll also have some new members on council and on the committees if seats remain open.
Okay, great. So, anyone for the Finance Committee, or we can move on to the next point?
All right, so Appointments Committee, we also have a seat open. This is the committee that makes holds all of the interviews to make recommendations for any of the committees on the university that need seats filled. So we have one seat open on this committee if anyone's interested in joining it. All right, so Clubs in Space.
I was actually going to ask, when do you meet?
Appointments Committee, we haven't been meeting a lot recently. We don't have any appointments to do upcoming, but there will potentially be more appointments after Christmas. We had been meeting though on Thursdays.
Lucy, is that okay?
Yeah, that answers my question.
All right, sure.
All right.
Okay, Club in Space.
So Clubs in Space, they're lacking lots of members. They have 2 spaces open. If anyone's interested, you get to help out with, or you decide the budgets for all of the clubs. You get to approve new clubs. If anyone's interested in joining Clubs in Space, that would be your time.
It's a very fun club.
Sustainability, you get to oversee all of the sustainability policies at the CSU. You get to sit on a committee with Gabrielle and all of her members. If anyone's interested.
And last but not least, Loyola.
We also have one seat available on the Loyola committee. That's my committee. We get to oversee all of the affairs on the Loyola campus. If anyone's interested in joining that committee.
Well, Chloe, I'm sure that after the elections, it'll be a completely different game.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so this moves us into new business. Yeah, I guess we can just proceed with the first point then, which is the audit. Anas, this is your point, so take it away.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm seeing from certain facial expressions that this is confidential information, so this may be a closed session point. We want to move to go into closed session. Yeah. Okay. I'll say fully, I'm not sure whether or not it's required for this point, so it's really at the discretion of council. Yeah, I'll follow your lead as to how to proceed. So there's a motion. Is there a seconder? Second. Okay, seconded by Adrian. It's not orthodox, but I'll allow a speakers list in order to have us be able to make a decision we're all comfortable with as far as whether or not we close or open. Terry?
So I guess just to provide some context, in the previous year, it was relatively contentious in terms of the performance the previous fiscal year. So, and there were some individuals who were moving to be on the board through the by-elections who were like directly implicated in the underperformance. So it was decided by council to go into closed session. Some items from the audit that we're going to see today are still in correspondence with what had taken place in the previous year. So the decision's ultimately up to council, but I think just to be like for full disclosure, obviously if the audit is adopted by council, then the same items that will be discussed in closed session will be like made public and circulated. So it's more just to ensure that the the content is being reviewed in a manner that allows for I guess like a comprehensive overview. So I think that the decision is ultimately up to council. It was just that there was I guess one could say that the previous year was a type of aberration in terms of the financial performance. So that is why in the previous year there was a decision made to go into closed session. I'm sure some of the councillors here had voted to do that because they were on council in the previous year. So I think that provides enough context.
Yeah. Appreciate the context. All right, let's take it to a vote then. Those in favor of going into closed session, please raise your flags. Okay. Those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, well that carries then. So I'll ask the media to leave the room until we open up again. All right, so we are on the second point of new substantive business, which is the point for policy changes. Marion, I believe this is your point.
The motion is to accept the policy committee report from November 16th. If someone wants to second it, I guess.
Oh,
But
oh, I see. Yeah, you're right. There's a procedural point mentioned during the break, which is that the last so trifecta motion was a bit sloppy, and so we thought maybe for the sake of procedure, we could formally ratify the motion to approve the motion during closed session, rather than have it just be tacked on. So, Chloe.
We'll approve the motions made in closed session.
Okay.
Do you want me to be more specific?
That's fine. Usual. Yeah, seconded by, okay. Yeah. Those in favor of ratifying the minutes of closed session, please raise your placards. Okay, those opposed? And any abstentions? Great, that carries. All right. Sorry about that, Marion. Just figured to do a little housekeeping. So.
Good. I'd like to repropose that we accept the policy committee report of November 16th.
Okay, great. Is there a second for that?
Great.
And votes.
Yes. So we're bringing this to you because we have some policy changes to our standing regulations, which were thoroughly discussed and reviewed at the policy committee over the last 2 weeks. And they basically concern the procedure for a university unit that wants to increase a fee that is part of the FIOs, the frais institutionnels obligatoires. And so we just outline the procedure for them so that it's very clear what steps they have to take, because they have to go through us to raise those fees, such as, for example, the recreation and athletics fee or the student services fee. The student services fee is like the student parent center and the Aboriginal student center and those kinds of services, as an example. And so we just added a few regulations saying that any referendum question regarding university fee levy can only be concerned with a single fee. So in the event that they want to raise several fees at once, each has to be on its own question. So then you can say, like, don't raise athletics, but do raise student services, just to clarify that. And then we lay out the procedure for them to submit a new fee or to increase an existing fee, and we outline the documents to be submitted to the policy committee, which are a description of the university unit that will administer the fees and the breakdown of services and activities that will be funded by the fee collected, the names of at least 2 officers responsible for the application process, including no less than 1 officer from the university unit and who will administer the fee, and no less than 1 undergraduate student. So when they're submitting it, it has to come from at least a student. A petition in support of the fees collection, a draft question to be approved by the CEO and council, and any other documentation. So that's to instate a new fee, and then it's similar to non-CSU groups such as other fee levy groups, and it's also very similar in the case that they want to modify an existing fee. So once again, it's a description of the unit, 2 officers, and then we say also the last published annual report and the financial reports from the past 5 years, a draft question, any other documentation. So what we're saying is that if you want to be increasing fees that the university administers, well, we're going to hold it to the same standard as a non-CSU group who also wants to implement or modify a fee. And this is coherent with how other universities deal with this. McGill also holds the university and fee levy groups to a pretty same standard in terms of how they introduce or increase fees. And we feel that it's important to ask the university to be transparent about their use of student fees, and so asking them to submit an annual report and financials for 5 years. But others on the committee, I guess, can comment on the discussions we had around this, if they would like.
Yes, Terry.
So, from my understanding of the way the student services work, they operate in 3-year cycles. So they outline, what needs would like to be met and what services they would like to provide, and try and distribute their resources accordingly for 3 years. And that's why, although the necessity to modify fees, student fees that are administered by the university used to be done kind of outside of the student referendum process, it's now been included, and this is why we're kind of the first mandate to have to kind of interface with that process. It hasn't been put in place, so I think the work that policy committee's been doing is really important. So knowing that they kind of operate with 3-year cycles and their budgets are distributed kind of cyclically, is it possible, or is there any inclusion as to how in the current iteration of the policy as to how future projections of fees, if they are to be approved by students, would be distributed? Like, is that a request currently under the existing changes? I guess that's a question for Marion.
Yeah, response.
Yep, so in to modify a fee, it says a breakdown of the services and activities funded by the current fee collected. And then what we're saying is that any other documentation could be added, but I guess our thought was that in preparing a campaign and presenting this as an option, the university would be in their interest to explain in the next 3-year cycle what they would be using for the new fee collected. But if you feel you want to add it, we can also add another requirement in terms of like a 3-year projection of where the fee's going.
Did that answer Emily or follow-up?
Yeah, I think although, you know, we like to operate in good faith with our relationships, it might be prudent to include that as a requirement, should future policy committees be less familiar with the operations and projections of student fees and student services. So,
Okay. Megan, as you make some features list?
Yes. Well, I was going to say that the university is already aware of this policy change, and they're aware that other universities do similar things. So they've already talked to McGill, and they already know that they're going to have to go through a stringent series of hoops when they want to increase the fee. So it's not going to be a surprise to them. They're prepared for this eventuality. I don't know if you can say that in French, in English. So could we maybe amend? I can also take a new speaking turn to amend, but I was suggesting that we amend 236, number A, to add a line that says like, and a projected 3-year breakdown of how they would use the new fee to the increase, something like that, collected.
Sorry, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Are you proposing an amendment right now, or are you talking about further subsequent policy committee review?
I think that it can be, adequately addressed at policy, but it's just to set the expectation that they might return.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, you don't want to do it now.
Well, what's being discussed now is just the ratification of minutes.
Of the report. Okay, we can talk about it another time.
Your list is over. All right, well, as I just mentioned, the motion is to approve or ratify the November 16th Policy Committee minutes. Those in favor, please raise your placards. Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries. Okay, thank you for that. And so 7C, next point is the 7th floor bathrooms. Marion, are you talking about this one too?
Absolutely.
All right, take it away.
So, motion on the table, be it resolved that council approves the expense of up to $1,000 for the purchasing of 2 baby changing tables to be installed on the 7th floor of the hall building and to be taken from the silk fund.
All right, that is the motion. Is there a second?
Everybody wants to second the babies.
Absolutely. Now you just motivate for them.
So, we've been, I guess the whereases are kind of this little text I wrote to put you into context. When we've been talking with the Concordia University Student Parent Center, another one of the issues that they brought up kind of back in the summer when I was talking to them was the lack of changing tables in washrooms on campus, which is really unfortunate because the university is really a public space that's used by a lot of other groups than just the students who are there for classes. And so we were thinking that it would be really nice to set the tone by saying we're going to, on the 7th floor, which is really a student space, put in some changing tables into the washrooms and then call on the university to expand that, the coverage of changing tables in washrooms throughout the different buildings. And especially because the 7th floor is used by such a huge variety of groups, like the 7th floor lounge there gets booked by all kinds of clubs and fee levies and community events. And there's people coming to the People's Potato every day, and there's the prayer spaces, so there's a lot of action on our floor, and we think that this will set an example, and we'll be able to collect feedback from student parents and from the other users of the washroom to hopefully implement further. The $1,000 is because just in quickly looking online, these units seem to be around $200, $300, $350 each, and so we just have to look in terms of the size restrictions, which type of unit we'd be buying and installing. And we already have a go-ahead from the facilities management folks. And yeah, there's definitely space for them, so it could even be on the outside wall that's like by the sinks, like the outside of the accessible washroom. I don't know if it's the same on the men's side. We're talking about the washrooms that are like right when you come out of the escalators, right? And so it could be, there'd probably be space in the like wheelchair accessible washroom to put the little changing table on the wall, or there might also be space on the outside wall that's like the wall facing the sinks. So you can evaluate that and see what unit would be best for this location.
Your list. Yes, yes.
So there's like one in each gender bathroom? Like one in the men's, one in the women's?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool.
That's the proposal.
All right then, those in favor, please raise your placards. Those opposed? Abstentions? All right, carries unanimously. Yeah, you'd like to add something?
Final comment.
Please do.
I don't know if that's what we're leading into, but I think it would be great to also have some in non-gendered washrooms. Unfortunately, in the hall building, the only one is on the 10th floor, and so it's kind of less of a high traffic area. But I think we should definitely keep that within our targets of where we want the next ones.
Great, thank you. The next one is the mid-mandate report. Terry, are you speaking to this?
Yeah.
Okay, take it away.
Okay, so I'll start with the motion.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding Standing Regulation 381, be it resolved that Council approves of the mid-mandate report submission to take place at the second January meeting of this year's mandate.
Motion, seconder. Okay.
Great, so in our standing regs currently, it requires us to submit our mid-mandate report at the first January meeting, because there's 2 regular council meetings in January, the second week of January and the 4th week. However, if you look at the calendar, that would mean that the mid-mandate report would be due on the 8th of January, and school classes resume on the 5th of January. And I guess this is more a request to allow the executive to have a genuine break. This was something that was done last year as well, so we might just consider revising the policy. That's something that we could perhaps amend to send to policy for review. So as opposed to reviewing the document on the 13th of January, it would be submitted on the 22nd and reviewed on the 27th of January. I just have the calendar here, so take my word for it. I think that, like we have been working really hard since our mandate started, and we've accomplished a lot of things, so we would like to be able to provide a comprehensive document that thoroughly reviews everything that we've been able to do up until now. And this document is also important for institution building and institutional memory so that future executives can review it. So I think it's in the interests of the CSU to allow a little bit more time for the report to be produced so that it can be done with high quality, as opposed to just producing something because there's a deadline, which is relatively arbitrary. I think that we really don't want to have to work on this during the holidays, and it would necessitate us to do so if we want to submit it on the 8th.
All right.
Yeah.
Terry preempted my comment I was going to make. This seems to be a recurring issue, so perhaps in policy we should take a look at that. So I don't see any issue with that.
Okay, thanks. All right, then we can proceed to a vote. Those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that carries. So the last point in new business, the positions book, promotion tolerance. Oh, yeah, Lori.
Hi. Okay, so I'm going to read out the motion. So we're co-presenting with John.
Okay.
So as for the motion, it states, whereas recent indiscriminate acts of violence have caused feelings of sorrow, fear, and aggression internationally, whereas mainstream media coverage continues to mislead and sensationalize current events, breeding a climate of intolerance, whereas this resulted in a series of heinous acts towards Muslims and their religious symbols, whereas our thoughts are with the departed and those still struggling and grieving throughout this time of hardship. Be it resolved that the CSU calls for respect and kindness towards all religious minorities in our community. Be it further resolved, the CSU call on the Concordia University community to foster a safer and more inclusive space for people of all cultures and religions as an act of solidarity internationally.
All right, thank you very much. Is there a second? Okay, so if you're co-presenting, you can vote.
Yeah. Essentially, we just felt that it was important for the CSU to use the megaphone it has to like reflect on recent international events. And this motion expresses not only solidarity with those like grieving right now or who may be in like a state of fear, but it also acts as a way to counter the rise of aggressions and xenophobic atmospheres that have come out in our own community. There's been like a groundswell of hateful actions, like mosques being burned in Peterborough, individuals being attacked on the street. A woman the other day was attacked because someone thought her scarf was a hijab. It was actually just a winter scarf. And so this climate that might be like festering in our own communities is something important to resist, and we wanted to use our voice and take a stand against it.
Great, thanks very much. Speaker list. Lucy.
I mean, I might as well just open with, like, I've never been less proud to be from Peterborough than in the past few weeks, but I think the spirit of this motion is great, but I was wondering if the executive was planning on collaborating maybe with the MSA, or whether the MSA was consulted on this statement to maybe, because I think having a megaphone is nice, but it might be good to have like a bit more teeth and be a bit more proactive. I don't know. As far as I know, maybe you already have.
Were you addressing that question to someone in particular?
No, just the executive in general.
Okay, would somebody care to respond? Yeah, Carrie?
Yeah, so we've definitely been in consultation for the specific wording of this motion with various stakeholders in the community, but we don't want to name like the groups. But we did due diligence in ensuring that we're being respectful. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Elise? Oh, sorry. Do you want to go somewhere?
Sure. Even in the particular wording of it was like reviewed by relevant stakeholders. So that's important to keep in mind.
Great, thank you. Elise?
Could you just read the view to
So be it resolved that the CSU calls for respect and kindness towards all religious minorities in our community. Be it further resolved, the CSU call on the Concordia University community to foster a safer and more inclusive space for people of all cultures and religions as an act of solidarity internationally.
Thank you. All right, Derek?
I rescind, but I think someone else. Yeah, sorry, I rescind. Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, John.
As yeah, okay. And so if this motion is passed, instead of being this like random symbolic gesture that sometimes happens at these meetings, and perhaps to give it teeth. I don't know if this actually gives it teeth, but we created a bit of a social media campaign, like a statement of like what council would have said or done or whatever, and a fun little image of Concordia University that I'll share on the council group after. And if it were to pass, we're going to encourage all of council to share it or like it or pass it around, and also other relevant groups on campus know we kind of put this little thing together and they're into it as well. So hopefully it takes off and lots of people hear about it. It generates a discourse and it generates more of a safe campus community, kindness between individuals in this kind of turbulent air.
Great, thank you. All right, if there's nothing further then, we can proceed to a vote. Those in favor of the motion? Those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, carries unanimously. All right, Lawyer John, would you like to say anything before we proceed to the next point? Or maybe Gabe would like to.
I was just saying we're making the post now on the CSU, so people that have laptops or phones can look at it and then share it and like it, and hopefully like pull it further.
Okay, thanks very much. So that takes us then to question period and business arising. If there are any questions from the public or otherwise, or any business that might be coming up at subsequent meetings, now's the time. Okay. Announcements period. Jason.
Just a PSA for everyone out there in terms of information security. When you send mass emails out to your peers, whether they be student representatives, student leaders, or your members, you put their emails in the BCC field, not the CC. Some of you have received email from the company Tilt, among other ads, and they're targeting not only our professional accounts, but our personal accounts. I've had a few incidents where associations like Conmoon or others send out all of our personal information in the CC field. It's very valuable for these people. They just copy all of our data and keep spamming us. So every time you communicate with your team, or publicly anyways, make sure that the person's private information is in the BCC field. B being blank. No one will ever see it.
It's
Blind. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Lori.
I have news on Reggie's, on the Reggie's bar. Okay, this is the final. Can we all have a little drum roll, please? All right. So Reggie's is opening tomorrow. That's my announcement. No one popped out of a cake or anything, but it's pretty, I think it's great. I'm super happy, and I hope you are as well. I would invite all of you all to come to Reggie's. I was going to. I was, not sarcastic. The recent news that we got our liquor license in time, because we were having a couple of delays because as you know, some sections are on strike, the SAQ, and so everything was resolved. We got our liquor permit. The kitchen's ready to go. The alcohol's ready to be poured responsibly. Okay. Great times, and I hope that you all embrace the space and that you're able to go with classmates, professors, staff, and just have a great time in the new space.
Great. And John, you want to add that?
Yeah. It's just pretty insane that we were so worried about getting our liquor permit and we didn't have an opening date until last night, where the GM was like, I want to open on Thursday, and so she did a lot of hard work to muscle her way in, and so did Lori, and so did our GM Robert, and Terry did a lot of stuff, so I want to congratulate them on doing an awesome job. But also Reggie's is in this soft launch sphere right now, where there's not going to be tons of take over the space type student events in there, so the staff and everything going on there can acclimatize to its reopening, and the university can acclimatize to a bar being on campus again. And then in the new year, a full booking policy is going to be out there, and it's going to have all the technical specs and great stuff like that.
All right. So I've got Jenna and then Lucy.
Oh, mine was just a question, but I think you just kind of answered it. Because MAs were wondering when they could book events at Reggie's. So is that only in January?
Tell them to message me
Just message you.
for now.
Lucy.
Before I start, I actually want to say, it's really funny seeing here and having the student media in the corner of my eye the minute that the announcement was made. There's just this palpable excitement over here. But it's pretty cool. But on a less fun note, just a note, if you work out of anything on the Bishop or Mackay annexes, or you know people who do, in the past week, I know of at least 2 break-ins that have happened on Mackay. I've heard rumors of more. and there's not really that much security can do once it's done, but it looks like there has been, you know, like things have been taken from at least one department, like laptops have been put on Craigslist, things have been disturbed. So yeah, so if you, like, especially if you're on Mackay, you know, people who work out of Mackay, just practice really due diligence in trying to keep things as safe as possible, because there's shenanigans on the street.
Thanks for that sobering. Terry.
I think Eloise had his. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
What
Yeah.
is it breaking? Like someone walking in, or like someone like,
Like,
busting a door?
in one of the cases, locks had been tampered with and like forced open, and now they're like, yeah, the door was like busted down. So, yep.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Oh, great. So it's the last council of the year before the outcome from the elections. So I figured I would take this opportunity on behalf of the executive to thank council for having been on board with us throughout the past 6 months or so, and that we really appreciate all the time that folks put in. I'm not going to go on a rant here, but just to say that at the next council meeting, it's the last one before the holidays, so depending on where the location of the meeting is, we would like to set the expectation of doing something social afterwards. So, we'll pick a local watering hole potentially, and, go and congregate and have conversation and enjoy everyone's company. And it might be a nice way to invite or welcome some of the new folks as well. But regardless, I know it's the middle of exams, but hopefully it'll be a good opportunity or an excuse to take a break. So thank you very much, and we'll be disseminating that information in due course.
Great. And spoiler alert, the next regular scheduled council meeting will be in the EBA building. Where's the EBA building? what is the EBA building? Very funny.
Garage in the corner.
I know. I've seen a couple of placards go up. Let's make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. So I see Genevieve, and then Layla, and then Jason again.
Speaking about watering holes, fingers crossed that the liquor permit comes in on time, but the Geography Undergrad Student Society is having their annual wine and cheese next Thursday. It's usually a pretty great event, and specifically for geography students, but we also love to get everybody and anybody who wants to come. It's going to be at the Hive from 7 to 10 p.m. Thanks.
Thank you.
Another event. On Friday is the last Studio 7 of the year. And Studio 7 is great. It's like interdisciplinary, but like most often dance and theater and music performances. That's either works in progress or developed works, and there's lots of feedback, and it's free. So if you want to see what theater or dance or music students are up to, you can come hang out, and there's beer, and I'll tell you a story because I'm going to be there, but so it's shameless self-promotion as well. But it's really fun, and it's on Friday on the 7th floor of JMSP at 8 p.m.
As for the theft of things, it's not only in the McKay Street, it's also in the Hall building. Our department lost their last projector last week to someone a break-in, and a student association, I forgot which one, lost ESGSA,
Yes.
lost, you got a computer, right?
All our locks were broken into on the 12th floor.
The door was smashed in, one of our the table, the projector was chained to it, the person cut the table to access the projector, not even the chain. So it's also in this building, so please lock after yourselves. Do not leave a projector inside of a window. Please, this guy's wacko.
All right. So I see Lori and then John. Top person.
I just wanted to share something that I think that I'm very proud of council today, and I'd like to thank all of you for always giving your input and daring to speak. And I wrote something, and I wanted to share it with you. It doesn't need to be on camera, but I just wanted to tell you that, how does one listen if one always speaks? How does one lead if one does not inspire? How does one expect change without action? How does one act without reflection? How does one respect without consideration? How does one make a difference if one is indifferent? And my wish and hope for you with the end of the year is I hope that you listen, inspire, act, reflect, and dare to differ. So I just wanted to share that with you.
So I know everyone hyped about all this fun stuff, but we also just posted that image and little statement on our page. So if you want to like it or share it tomorrow, or plan out strategic sharing periods amongst your peers, and how to maximize the stretch so people feel better. Anyway, just letting you know it's up, and don't forget about those things.
Heavy-handed recommendation from John. Do I see a motion to adjourn? Lucy, seconded by Genevieve. Anyone opposed to adjournment? Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.